So the clock continues to tick when it comes to this infrastructure bill, this first infrastructure bill, the roads, bridges, broadband. This bill needs to get passed sooner than later. And they're continuing to negotiate. So you have the White House negotiating with the Republicans as far as trying to figure out a top line as well as how to pay for this first infrastructure bill. Now, you do have Democrats right now that are saying, you know what, let's just move forward. We have reconciliation. Let's use it. But the White House they want to negotiate. They want to try to make this bipartisan. And so the reason why this is important for us to get this infrastructure bill, this first one done, is because once this gets done, then they can move on to the American Families Plan. The American Families Plan, that's where you're going to have this human infrastructure for the American people. So that's what we want to focus on, but we have to get past the first infrastructure bill before we can do that. So we're going to take a look and a listen to Pete Buttigieg. He's the transportation secretary. But first off, you guys can do me a favor. Please hit the like button. It does help with the YouTube algorithm. Also, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that little bell notification. That way you'll get notified anytime we put out a video. So we're going to take a look at this clip, but before we do, I do want to mention at the end of this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about this imposter. The imposter is back, so I want to talk a little bit about that. I have someone that is acting like they're me, but they're really not me. So you could just wait to the end. We'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, let's go ahead and take a look and a listen to Pete Buttigieg. Here we go.
Getting us to where we need to be.
Let's turn to infrastructure negotiations just to catch everyone up. President Biden started at $2.3 trillion in his proposal. Republicans started at about $600 billion. Now President Biden has gone down to $1.7 trillion. Republicans say they're at nearly $1 trillion over 8 years. You still want more money for rail, and you still can't agree on how to pay for it. When you and I talked on the show 6 weeks ago about it, you said the president wanted major action by Memorial Day. So what's next? Is the White House going to make another counteroffer? What's the plan?
Yeah, so this week Congress is out of Washington, but it's very much going to be a work week for us and for the conversations that are ongoing with Congress. By the time that they return, which is June 7th, just a week from tomorrow, we need a clear direction. Certainly encouraging to see the healthy conversations that have happened over the last days and weeks. But the president keeps saying inaction is not an option, and time is not unlimited here. The American people expect us to do something. They expect us to deliver, and it's my hope that these continued conversations, really over these next few days, will be productive and will lead to that clear direction.
So it sounds like here he's actually extending the date, because the date was the 31st. That was the deadline date. Obviously, Congress is not in session this whole week, so this is no shocker, right? So they're not in session, and so they're not going to be talking about this, is basically what Pete Buttigieg is saying. So on June 7th, when they return, that's when they need to have this clear direction. So it looks like they're going to extend it out one more week.
So there seems to be a disagreement between what President Biden and agreed to with Republican senators and what his staff is now saying. Key Republican negotiator, Senator Shelley Moore Capito, a Republican from West Virginia, she says, and other senators who are in the room with her agree, that President Biden suggested he's willing to settle around $1 trillion, and it didn't matter to him if it was $1 trillion over 5 years or $1 trillion over 8 years. Now, I understand the devil's in the details in terms of how to pay for it, the timeline, et cetera. As an overall principle, is that correct? President Biden is willing to accept a $1 trillion price tag, and it doesn't matter to him if it's over 5 or 8 years.
Well, the president's counteroffer was a $1.7 trillion package. And again, that represents coming off our original view by $500 billion. It is encouraging to see Republicans talking about getting to the neighborhood of $1 trillion. Of course, when you start trying to make it apples to apples, comparing what would have been spent anyway, looking at the categories, that's where the devil really is in the details. And those are the things that we're continuing to discuss with them. But I'll say, we've been in these discussions in good faith, and there have been really healthy negotiations of the kind that I think people were starting to wonder whether that's even possible in Washington anymore.
One thing I wanted to point out, now this is going to be over 5 years or 8 years. So this $1 trillion is, or 1.7, whatever they agree on, it's not going to be just 1 year. This is going to be over time. So the talk of, well, we don't have the money, they're trying to find pay-fors, and it's going to be over an extended time period.
This is exactly what happens in those negotiations. Do the categories line up? Do the numbers line up? Are we talking about the same thing? And can we get to an overlap? We're not there yet. There's definitely a lot of difference in our views, but it's been encouraging to see the movement.
So just to translate for folks out there who aren't staying up to speed on every single one of these details, when Secretary Buttigieg talks about the money that would have been spent otherwise, he's talking about infrastructure and transportation money that's just automatic in the budget. And the suggestion has been made by Democrats that the $1 trillion or almost $1 trillion counterproposal the Republicans have made over 8 years is really only a couple $100 billion more than what automatically would have been spent. Right? I'm hearing you correctly. I believe that that's the correct assessment. So my question is, do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Does that mean that they're negotiating in bad faith?
And that's interesting, right? So only a couple or $200 billion would be added to the money that's already going to be spent. There's already money allocated for infrastructure every year, and so that's interesting that it looks like it's $1 trillion, but it's really not $1 trillion. It's like $200 billion.
No, that's the thing. I mean, we've been very above board when we're in these conversations. The charts are out, the numbers are there, and obviously there are a lot of different ways to talk about the same thing. The fact that they philosophically seem to agree that trillion-dollar investments are the kind of thing we need to be doing right now, that's encouraging. But we aren't exactly aligned. In fact, there's a lot of daylight here, especially because things that we consider very important, from making sure that we're sparking an electric vehicle revolution and that it happens in the U.S. with American workers on American soil, to the president's commitment to make sure that we get rid of 100% of lead pipes in this country. We didn't see as much of that in the counter proposal. But again, that's how a negotiation works. These are exactly the kinds of things we're talking through over the next few days. I just want to emphasize we really are talking about the next few days, because by the time Congress is back in Washington, I think those members of Congress and, frankly, the American people and all of us in the administration expect to have a clear direction.
So some Democratic lawmakers who, and I'm not just talking about the Bernie Sanders types who are very skeptical of Republicans to begin with, even though Sanders does have a record of bipartisan work, but some people who make a tradition of it, who normally cut deals, they say, you know what, Buttigieg, you've negotiated enough. The Republican counterproposal isn't much more than the U.S. would have spent anyway. You're wasting your time. Take a listen.
It's an old expression, fish or cut bait. I think we're getting to that moment.
We hope to move forward with Republicans, but we're not going to let them saying no stand in our way.
But at some point, we have to move forward.
Casey, Schumer, Durbin, these are people who generally would be in favor of negotiating. Are you basically saying that in the next week, if there isn't an agreement, Democrats are going to go it alone?
I think we are getting pretty close to a fish or cut bait moment, but I'll tell you that on the fishing side of things, the negotiations have been healthy. There's a lot of conversations going on among members of Congress who have come forward with a lot of different ideas, in addition to the discussions that we've had with the group led by Senator Capito. So we believe in this process, but also very much agree that this can't go on forever. The American people want results. We are 13th place in infrastructure as a country now, and probably headed the wrong direction. We are seeing losses to this day, not just things you count up in industry group reports of the millions that are lost when we have port backups, but just individual families paying hundreds of bucks a year in the so-called pothole tax, the invisible cost of wear and tear in our vehicles when roads aren't in good shape. This can't go on in terms of the condition of our infrastructure. Therefore, the negotiations can't go on forever either.
Okay, so that was Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and you heard that he said that we're in 13th place when it comes to in the world when it comes to infrastructure. I thought that's pretty interesting, right? We are a superpower, most powerful country in the world, but when it comes to infrastructure, we do not compare to some of these other countries. And I can attest to at least part of that. When I travel all over the world. When I go to some of these different airports, they are really nice compared to the airports that we have in the U.S. So we do have work to do. And so spending trillions of dollars to improve our infrastructure, I think, is the right move. And they just need to get it done sooner than later. And the talk of negotiations and going back and forth and making it bipartisan, look, the job just needs to get done. And it should have been done weeks ago. Let's get it done so we can move forward with this American Families Plan. Okay, I want to show you this post here. Now, this is a comment, and I just found it interesting because thank you, Doreen, for participating, and she's at the top here. So we're not looking at that. We're looking at the response. So this TEC show, that is not me, okay? Now, I did respond to this just so you can see what I look like when I respond. So you'll have that last message there. You see that it's colored in and it has that little check mark. That check mark certifies the account. That means that is me. So if you do not see a check mark, that is not me. So what this person does, and they've been doing this, and they continue to do it. Every time I block them, they come right back. But what they're doing is they're putting this information in here. They usually leave a phone number. They left a phone number here, but of course I blocked that phone number out because we don't need to give this person any extra publicity. But this continues to happen. So what you guys can do for me, if you see this, report it. You can report it to YouTube. I've been reporting it. I've been blocking this person, but they just keep coming back. And so it's just an ongoing problem. It's not just my channel. A lot of YouTubers are dealing with the same issue because they've told me the same thing. So just if you guys can do that, I'd really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, please post it down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye.